Hello, fellow Sublime Text fanatics. Odat Nerd here. Welcome to the devlog for Devember day 16, I think. Yeah, it's the 16th. It's the weekend. What can I say? What did we get up to tonight in the stream? We worked on coalescing and diffing to create our ultimate file sets. I believe at least one of those things was something that I mentioned that I wanted to do last night in the stream, and I think in the devlog. And the other was the last bit of that. What the hell am I actually talking about here? Well, what we've been working on for the last couple of days is the ability to scan a folder or all of multiple folders, depending on how the project is set aside in your sidebar, and gather all of the files in there, of course, including only those files we want and excluding files and paths that we don't, ending up with a dictionary of one or more complete paths. Now, as we know, we may want to or may be forced to have multiple entries in the sidebar that are technically all part of the same project, just laid out differently. And in fact, one of the things I did tonight was officially change the project file I'm using to hide remote build server from inside the Devember package and add it as a top level thing because it is its own project per se, even though it's stored in the same folder. So that is an example of doing that very thing. And so what we would end up with, of course, is one folder that is a short path like Home T Martin Local Source Devember 2018 with some files, and then another entry for another folder, Home T Martin Local Source Devember 2018 Remote Build Server with more stuff. Now, obviously, by looking at those paths, we can tell those two directories, one's actually contained inside the other. So we have implemented a coalesce function which takes one of those dictionaries and tries to find common paths and move the files around. And this does end up working exactly the way that I mentioned it yesterday. I think I talked about what I wanted to do there. But if not, basically the gist of the operation is we take the list of all of the file folders, sort them by path, which means first by their path name, then by their file name on the end, if any, although in this case there aren't any. That just occurred to me now. So you end up with files in a hierarchical structure with the shorter ones first and the longer ones second. Then we iterate over those one by one and say, this path here, is there a path in the output that we're creating that exactly matches its whole length is part of our prefix? And if the answer is no, you just copy yourself into that dictionary, which is what always happens for the first entry because that output is empty, right? Then for the next path, it does the same thing against the one key that it added last time. And if it doesn't have a if that path doesn't match the start of this one, then they're two distinct paths. This one's just added the same way as the other one was. But when it finds that one is completely and wholly contained in the other, for example, the first time it goes in, it hits the Devember 2018, there's no entries, it adds it. The next time it comes along and says, hey, I'm Devember 2018 remote build server, and I can't help but notice that there's a path in there that is our entire part except for that one bit. So that one bit is pulled off, appended to the name of all of the files, and all of those entries that were stored in that directory are shuffled over into the top one. Result, there's only one top level directory, and we basically reconstructed the folder structure. So simplistic in process. I knew how I wanted it to work, and I just sort of got stuck in the implementation details. I got mired a little bit, but we got there in the end, and then went a little bit long tonight because I wanted to work on one last piece of the puzzle, if you will, which is file set operations. And without going into too much detail in how that works, because we did go long and it's already 10 o'clock and I should be uploading this devlog and not creating it right now by this point in time. It is a function that takes two dictionaries that both came from that thing we were just creating. Now, under the theory is one of them would be our local files and one of them would be files as far as the server knows what they are. And then we basically create a new dictionary that has top level keys, one for each of the folders that are part of the build, like you would expect. But instead of having the values of those keys be the files that are contained, instead there are three keys: add, remove, modify. Each of those three keys is a dictionary. Add contains the file entries for files that should be added, i.e., one side has the file, our local side has the file, remote side doesn't have the file. That's a file that needs to be added. Remove, the other side has a file, but we don't have that file. We're the gospel here. We must have deleted that file. Server, delete that file. And modify. I have that file and you have that file, but our copies of the files are different based on their SHA-1 hash. So I'm going to update that file. And one last operation is uh, based on folders, which is if I have a folder and the server doesn't have a folder, everything in that folder should be sent to the server. It should just be an implicit add for everything. And if the server has a folder and I don't have the folder, then I must have remove everything from that folder and remove that folder entirely. The server will redact it away and it will be gone. And that part is the part that was easy to do, if you will. Basically, just use some set operations to easily find the things in one side but not in the other, and the intersection of both, and a little bit of comparison action. So seems to work in our tests. That's great. So going forward into tomorrow and the next few days, we're actually going to try using all of these pieces we've built to start the package proper, if you will, which is going to start by creating the conversation where the client talks to the server, introduces itself, asks the server for the list of files it has. We need to get that list of files. We need to get our own list of files. We need to diff stuff. Simple in concept, perhaps tricky to implement because it more or less means we have to implement the stuff we just finished doing in C# instead of in JSON. And I'm going to need to hopefully spend some time and see what a nice JSON library for C# and .NET Core is. But that is the plan for the upcoming days. We're really close to actually being able to do something. Remember, we're assuming that if we can get files onto the server, we can make the remote end build. Whether or not we can capture the results and send them back, that might be tricky. I hope not. Certainly we know how to send data, so it all just comes down to capturing the output of the build. But time will tell on that one. And can you tell that I had to modify the tripod that I'm using to create the devlog? It sort of slowly tilted over time. I may have been appearing as a Batman villain. In any case, time for me to get this vlog up and going. We are making some great strides. We're now going to get into the complicated, fun, meaty part of the operation. So until that time, have a sublime day.